I am resident of Collinwood for YouTube, joined by my buddy Gordon Dymowski and my buddy Patrick McCray. We're here to talk Alfred Hitchcock's classic Vertigo, or more importantly, we're here to talk some subtext about the movie. James Stewart's character, who was a cop, who becomes a private investigator due to an incident involving heights, and he suffers from vertigo, quite literally. Now, the person he gets hired by, he served in the military with, I believe, if my memory serves me.
Yeah.
Um, I wouldn't call them best friends. They just
I think
know.
they went to, didn't was it the military? Or did they go to college together?
I,
Or no, he went to college with Midge.
yeah,
Yeah.
they. I wouldn't call them best friends, but they just know each other.
I mean, not biblically, but
Right,
yeah.
right. So he wants to hire him to follow his wife, and he goes, I think she's someone else, and he's like, how did he takes the case after some reluctancy, and he begins to follow her, not just follow her, but fall in love with a woman who thinks she's someone else, which gets into dark shadows because Barnabas was trying to make Maggie Evans think she was Josette, which Patrick had brought this point up. So, Patrick, you go first. What do you think of this?
Well, I mean, the movie was released in 1958. So it was less than 10 years before that storyline. Vampire movies had never done the reincarnated lost love after many generations thing. Dan Curtis invented that. And so for me, if you take a very prominent, well-known movie where you have a tragic, occasionally sinister, but ultimately sadly likable hero, and you put him in a position where he is constantly, he has this love taken away from him, who falls from a great height,
Yeah.
in theory, who is taken away from him. You introduce at the beginning of the story a ghost story element that, there's the chance that Madeline is haunted by this creature from the past, which is Dark Shadows-esque,
Yeah.
or Dark Shadows would be Vertigo-esque in that sense. And then he, tries to recreate her, because it's never really clear entirely what Barnabas's plan is. I mean, I guess because he could just bite her and mind control her, but he doesn't want to do that. Yes, he wants to make her into a vampire, but he also wants her to either believe she's Josette or awaken the Josette within. It changes. I think they needed it to be a murky plan so it could be so it could be everything, and so and lo and behold, it is. So so that's the situation that we have. And for me, the idea of a hero trying to recreate a lost love from the past, getting all these physical details right, fetishizing, this item and that item, and the way she did her hair and the way she wore her hat, you can't take that away from me. All of that stuff is Vertigo. So there.
Gordon, what did you think of this?
I think Vertigo is one of my favorite U2 songs. I mean, it's not as good as say With or Without You, or even Sunday Bloody Sunday. I do know there's a lot of controversy about it because it was the album that U2 forced via Apple. Oh wait, you're talking Vertigo the movie. Okay, yeah. I think Vertigo the movie, good movie. It was actually one that was pulled from kind of syndication in the late 60s and was re-released in the mid 80s because I actually saw it when I was in high school because I was in a big kind of movie kick, ever since my sophomore English teacher showed us Citizen Kane as part of our curriculum. So now I thought the Vertigo was a really good, and I think talking to the dark shadowsness of it, I think the fact that the latter half, in kind of like the last half hour, where James Stewart meets Judy, the second Kim Novak character, and not only tries to shape her to be that initial lost love, but also really gets obsessive about it to the point where he's like, no, you need this kind of gray suit.
Yeah.
I think it also speaks to the fact that when you look at Barnabas throughout the series, first he's always convinced that some woman is his lost love. And it's, in Dark Shadows terms, it's supernatural because it turns out they are. But like there's the Maggie, he tries to convert Maggie. He then develops a thing for Victoria. Then there's Rachel Drummond, who turns out she's not Josette, but Kitty Soames is. And I think there's this kind of idea that Barnabas maybe is less missing Josette and more enamored of the idea of Josette, because she's long dead, and I think there's something to that about the idea of trying to find that kind of perfect woman. And it looks like I think we've lost Patrick because he's kind of frozen.
Chris, hello.
We can hear. I can hear you.
Me? Am I honestly? Can you not?
I can see you're a freeze frame at my end, Patrick.
Okay. Well, I'm moving here. If that means anything.
We can hear you.
Delicious. Okay, good. Well, I can lose the pants.
Please don't.
There is a lot that I could say about this. This is one of my 3 favorite movies. And I can watch it any number of times, come back to it again and again. It's not only an entertaining movie, but it's a movie that has always had a really profound capacity to change my mood, change my mode of thinking. There's a very hypnotic quality to Vertigo. I think some of it is the repetitious nature of the music, but I think it actually induces a bit of a trance. I genuinely do. No movie has any business being this slow, and yet I can't look away from it. Very little happens in most 20-minute stretches of Vertigo, and yet everything feels like it's happening. I can't explain that. That is a magic that exists, as Theodore Roszak would say, in between the flickers. As to the point about love in the movie, I think it's a film that tells the truth about men, or about certain men, in such honest, direct ways that I don't think the audience can contend with it and can talk about it. And I think people very politely look at something that is clearly in front of them and refuse to acknowledge it. I think they pretend, oh well, that's just Jimmy Stewart. No, it's not. No, it's not. Or they just don't even see it at all. But it's a very dangerous movie to talk about, because it can, unless you were, a gender studies expert or somebody like that who has the qualifications to talk about these things. I don't. I'm just a guy. I'm just a person. But there's a lot I don't want to say, because it's so easy to slide into generalizations, and yet I don't want to have to pack it in the cotton of politically correct verbiage so that I can say what I would be saying anyway, but in some form that has the right codicils around it to make people happy. And that is a testament to the power of this movie.
Yeah.
So take that as you will. Jewel, I know you have a lot to say about what I just said.
Well,
So,
before I get into James Stewart as an actor,
okay, we'll talk about James Stewart as an actor.
I think when you look at this movie and you look at how James Stewart's character becomes very controlling of the second Kim Novak character. And I mean, to the point of when I see how the way he was controlling her and ordering her around and stuff, it reminded me a bit of my dad and how, men can just be very controlling. And again, I don't think he gets to the point of demeaning her, but I do think he gets to the point of obsessive controlling her to the point. And that's the thing with this movie, like, because James Stewart was a detective. He was a private, he was on a private investigator case.
Yeah.
The part of me goes, okay, is his character doing this on purpose to get a confession? Does he realize that this woman really was that other woman dressed up? Has he put that together? That's the question in the movie.
Yeah.
Part of my answer is yes, and it involves James Stewart as an actor in general. Here's where I'm going to get into James.
Okay.
If you watch,
you got so much to say about what you just said. Go ahead and talk about James Stewart as an actor, and then either back to this or we don't. No, that's okay. Let's talk about James Stewart as an actor.
Okay. As an actor, there are roles when James Stewart generally plays a protagonist role.
Uh-huh.
And he did play an antagonist role once upon a time. When he plays a protagonist role, especially in most of his movies, he plays characters who often go seeking either A, revenge, or B, vengeance, or C, justice. And for example, the man from Laramie, he's looking for his brother's killer. And he's seeking vengeance. Bend of the River, he's double crossed and he goes seeking revenge. Winchester 73, he's seeking revenge as well, and justice in a sense. The Hitchcock, I think, is playing to this with Stewart against Novak in a sense of the characters, because Stewart has played so many characters who are so used to getting vengeance. I think Hitchcock wanted to put that in it. Now, do I have a problem with that? No, not necessarily, but I do wish. And again, I know it's already a long movie. It's like 2 hours. What I wish they would have did was Stewart, as he starts to turn her, as he's turning her into the lookalike, have her start writing notes to the husband and mess with him.
Gavin Elster?
Yeah.
Yeah. Let me maybe give a broader interpretation because I think a lot of the control issues are less about Stewart as an actor and more about Hitchcock as a director.
Yeah.
Hitchcock was known as being a very meticulous filmmaker. Yeah. He would storyboard all of his movies. His attitude was when he got to the set, he would just go, okay, you go here, say your lines, get it done. Oh. Hitchcock was also developed a reputation about being fascinated with a certain kind of blonde. So you've got Grace Kelly, Kim Novak, Tippi Hedren. So there was those issues being involved. And I think Hitchcock was, I know he was one of many directors who said, I believe actors are like cattle.
He never said that. He was quoted on that. And he said, no, I never said actors are like cattle. I said actors should be treated like cattle.
Okay, well, but that still speaks to a need to control.
Sure.
And I think that it's very easy, especially when you're dealing with a piece of basically with a 60-year-old movie to jump in and say this is what they should have done in order to tell the story. Hitchcock knew what he was doing. The other thing, and it's more of a thing that we learned, it's a scientific thing that we learned later on about infatuation and a romantic obsession, is that when you're dealing with infatuation or obsession, and this is going to get a little technical, a slew of neurochemicals flood your brain. And basically what happens is you go, oh, hey, here's somebody I like, I feel good, but they're not available or I can't have them or whatever, so I feel bad. I'm going to feel stressed out about it, but I also get a little energies with which I could do something. So it's where you get the 1980s rom-com of the geeky guy trying to remove the girl from the not so good boyfriend. But I think Hitchcock, he didn't know this exactly science, but when it comes to obsession, infatuation, there is a need to want to get everything done. There is a drive to, your brain does not act logically. And I think in this point, essentially, the whole point of this movie is that Stewart's getting played. The husband played Stewart as like the patsy to see his wife get killed. And at this point, it's also where, Stewart realizes that Judy is the woman who kind of led him, kind of played this role to set him up as a patsy. This is not a movie about James Stewart getting revenge on somebody. This is a movie about James Stewart both being controlled and controlling at the same time. He is both puppet and puppet master.
Yeah. Patrick?
Jewel, this is very, very, very precariously on the verge of my monologue for Ninth Configuration, which I don't know if anybody even listened to.
I did.
Thank you. You were there. You were a hostage at the time, but I appreciate that. I could not. I will both agree somewhat, but do so by disagreeing vigorously with the term revenge. Let's say it's a revenge movie. Why not? Who's he getting revenge?
Well, not revenge. I didn't say he was seeking revenge. I said justice. I want to be very clear. Yes, okay. I understand Hitchcock was meticulous. I'm not taking that away here. But also, when this movie comes out, Stewart has played several characters who have either seek revenge, seek justice, or seek vengeance. Now, he's not necessarily seeking revenge, but I would say he's seeking some kind of vengeance or other, because when he starts going after Grace Kelly's second character, he's becoming very
Jewel, it's Kim Novak who's in Vertigo, not Grace Kelly.
Kim Novak. Kim Novak's second character, he's becoming very agitated, very, I won't say mean, but he's very aggressive to a degree. And I've seen other Stewart characters get to this point where you get what he's really after. Maybe there's some control, but he's also seeking something else. There's other characters he's played. Like I said, go watch The Man from Laramie and get back to me, because
that'll fix it.
Well, no, I'm just saying he's played characters who, like I said, they either seek revenge, vengeance, or justice. Yeah. And I do think to a degree, Stewart's they're doing that with Stewart here to a degree. I'm not saying that he's not trying to control Kim Novak's character. He is. But also, too, he becomes, again, he becomes very obsessive, making her dress up like her. And two, being a former detective, now a private investigator, he like I said, in my mind, he knew at the point when she's completely looking like the woman he fell in love with. I think he puts it together that, okay, that was you. And that's
Oh,
what I mean by vengeance and justice.
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's in the film that he figures it out because he sees the necklace. But to kind of maybe pull back a bit, because it's very easy to say, well, this actor did A, B, and C, so therefore this is what he's looking at in this movie. The one thing to keep in mind is that Hitchcock, big historical context. James Stewart, when he was an actor, he was I think the more modern, his modern equivalent would be like a Tom Hanks. He had a type of being the decent guy. And the movies that he did, and Hitchcock was really good at casting lead actors, especially Stewart, and playing with that image. So like there was a movie in the 40s called Notorious with Cary Grant and Ingrid Bergman. And if I remember the plot correctly, Cary Grant is trying, it's not clear. The hint is that Cary Grant married Ingrid Bergman, he's trying to kill her. Cary Grant at the time was Mr. Charm, Mr. Elegant. He was the George Clooney of the 1940s. And yes, for those watching, I will burn in hell for saying that out loud. But anyway, and that's what Hitchcock was doing. And Hitchcock probably, I don't know how connected with then modern cinema he was. I don't think he was like a Scorsese or a Spielberg where they're seeing everything. But I think he knew enough that he's got that type. You've got the Jimmy Stewart type. And yeah, maybe Man from Laramie does inform how he's acting in Vertigo. But Hitchcock is also making sure that with Stewart, he's flipping the script. Stewart is not the kind guy, like he's not in Rear Window where he's got a broken leg, he witnesses, he's innocent, he just can't do anything about it. He's not in The Man Who Knew Too Much where he's basically, again, a victim of circumstances. Jimmy Stewart is playing probably as close to it flat out. If a flat out, this is a guy who failed at his job. He takes on a job which is questionable at the very least. Yeah. He's following around a woman who claims that she has a spirit in her who may have some other issues. Then when she dies, because he fails to act, he meets someone who looks like her, says, oh, okay, well, I'm going to make sure she fits this exact prototype precisely under the guise of loving her. And then when he realizes what's going on, that, yeah, she's the person who basically, helped, took care of the first wife. He essentially kind of like, without acting, lets another woman fall to her death. So I don't think it's Jimmy Stewart seeking vengeance and revenge. I think this is a guy this is a case of a director taking a well-known actor's image and playing with it and saying, because the audience is thinking, wait, Jimmy Stewart wouldn't do that. But if Jimmy Stewart's character would do that, that means he's not good. It's playing with that archetype.
Mm. But the thing of that is, I've seen James Stewart's characters sort of be, how do I put this? They're good, but they're not all the way good, or they're decent.
Yeah, because he was a real bastard in Harvey. He was just a total bastard in Harvey.
With, like, I've talked about Bend of the River. In Bend of the River, James Stewart plays a former Missouri Raider who is trying to change his ways. He's not a good guy, but he's not exactly a bad guy. He's just trying to change his checkered past, or change the representation of what he was. And he's trying to take this family full of farmers cross country to build their home and shit. And along the way, he runs across some questionable men and maybe somebody from his past. And that man also ran along the same border, just on the opposite side. And the man is telling James Stewart's character, they'll never let us change. They'll never let us change. They just look at us one way. And James Stewart's character, you're wrong, in a sense. And there's two great scenes that I love. One is they're shooting at some people, and the one guy's not stopping shooting at them, even though they're running away. And he goes, should we stop? And the one guy says, no, you shouldn't. Why should we stop? Just keep firing. And James Stewart's character says, if I have to tell you why to stop, then, I shouldn't have to tell you why. You should know to stop. You're a grown adult. But then there comes the dark side of James Stewart's character in that movie, where he tells the guy who double-crossed him, one day you're going to look back in the darkness and I'll be there. Basically to kill you. I mean, that's what he's implying. And I'm not saying that's here in this movie, no. But in the same sense, when he sees Ken Novak's character, he doesn't try, okay, here's a guy who was a former lawman, who was a police officer, correct? He's pretty much proven in his own mind that this woman was her. And he could go to the police and prove it.
That's accurate.
And he doesn't. And so why doesn't he? Well, because he is getting some sort of, in a weird way, twisted, maybe not revenge, but vengeance for himself. The character, James Stewart has played characters who have a shade of gray to him before this movie. And here too, he's playing a character who's now a shade of gray because he's been played by somebody who hired him and knew. That's sort of the fun part about this movie. The guy who hired him knew all about the Vertigo stuff, and he even said that. And it's like, okay, once you see the woman, Kim Novak's first character die, he was unable to save her. And then you find out the truth of what really happened. But you also know that James Stewart's character, prior to finding out, prior to going back to the big clock tower or whatever, he could have went to the cops. He could have went, and again, I'm not nitpicking the movie, but from a character standpoint, if he really wanted the truth to be known, he could have done it to other people, to people who could have. And again, no one really blamed him for the first murder or for the first incident. But if this is about not letting someone get away with their wife's murder, which it's not in the sense, but I just feel James Stewart's character isn't, how do I put this? He's very shades of gray in this. He becomes a very gray character because of the event, because of two events, really. One, the first Vertigo event, and then the second, this whole being played process. He's not, what's the Alice Cooper? No more Mr. Nice Guy. Well, that's James Stewart's character. No more Mr. Nice Guy. He's not going to be nice.
He's torturing her with dinners at Ernie's.
That Patrick.
Now, Jewel, I have things to say, but every time I've tried to say them, I have been interrupted.
I'm sorry.
That's okay. I'm just seeing if that's what's going to happen. We'll talk about James Stewart's career and stuff like that. But if you want to talk about the movie, I'd like to talk about the movie and about its implications in a larger sense. I'm very serious about this. This movie matters a lot to me.
Who's that?
I'm okay with any level of conversation, but I'm very, very, very intense about this film, and I'm very defensive of Scotty, James Stewart's character. Oh boy, God, there's a lot to unpack here. I I respect what you have said. I could not disagree with it more. However, I do take a different perspective on the events of the film. Um, uh, I don't think there is anything controlling in Scotty's character except someone finally trying to control that which has been taken from him. He's trying to control his world. He's trying to control what was quintessentially his heart that was stolen from him. And he's not your father. He's not in a position to he's not gonna raise his hand to her. He is certainly he holds her by no marriage contract or anything like that. At any moment, Judy can say, I've had it. At any moment, she could do that, and she doesn't. So what's he controlling her by, buying her a specific skirt? Well, she can say no. She can just walk out of the store, and you can't Me Too me on that one. She just can, because clearly, she and Gavin Elster, two women, have held the cards in all of this the whole time.
Yeah.
For once, a character is, if you just turned certain events in the movie around, it'd be a romantic comedy, or it'd be a touching drama. Guy gets a second chance. Guy has the girl die on him, but find someone who looks just like her, and by giving her the same opportunities, they both find love or something. You could tell that story. You could very easily take Vertigo, and just by turning a few things, it becomes something else. And Judy is actually ready for that movie. She writes the confessional letter, but Scotty didn't get it. And so, but he went, what is the little element that, because I'm so, where he takes her up. Oh, it's the jewelry. She puts on the jewelry before they go to Ernie's, right? It's Madeline's, a tiara or something. Anyway, here's your old gray horse. And, the fact is that he is a good cop. He does overcome his fear. He does not fail the second time. He can't help it if a nun comes from out of nowhere and just poof, and they don't have proper handrails. Right. That's not his incompetence. The fact is, the tragedy, and this is the horrible thing about standing up for yourself, because, in life, some of us tend not to stand up for ourselves because it just makes us bigger targets. And the minute he goes up there, he conquers his fear so that he can be emotionally shattered again by a nun. As she goes plunging off into nothing. This is, I think, a very important story, because, men in the media get the shaft. Yes. Oh, well, abusive. Oh, God, give me a break. Yes, many men are abusive. Many women are abusive. Many men are psychologically abusive. Many women are psychologically abusive. Many men are physically abusive. Many people tend to be abusive. And it's a horrible thing. And this is an instance of a guy who, through what he thinks may be a fluke of time or fate or circumstance, or he just has a gut instinct, he doesn't know what, but he can actually turn back the clock. He can get something back, even though it's it's obvious, and it's obvious to him, kind of sleazy and wrong. Is it sleazier or more wrong than what was done to him? You know, this phrase, victim mentality, has entered into the lexicon many, a couple of decades ago. And I'm sorry that it's been villainized that way, because sometimes someone is a victim. The word exists in a dictionary, okay? And it doesn't say victim, see cop out. Sometimes someone has something bad done to them and they're a victim. Scotty is a victim. And he has the chance to rewrite history. And is that revenge, or is it simply a chance to maybe take control over his fate? Because one of the secrets here is that men, in my experience, we may love poorly. We may love in a million directions at once. It may be very diffuse. But we do love very hard. And we love very deeply. We may not demonstrate it in the way that people want us to demonstrate it. But Butch once made a generalization, and it has stuck with me because the generalization has fit the experiences I have had with individuals. I think I have couched it in enough political correctness to get away with what I'm about to say. He said, in his experience, the women he had known had very binary feelings. And when they were done with someone, for whatever reason, boop, that switch had been thrown, and that was it. Now, we are speaking about the people with whom he had had experiences up to that point, which was before he met Jill. And those are similar to my experiences. Now, if I were to date men, maybe I would have that experience with men also. Maybe this is a universal thing, but I don't date men. So I can only talk about a lot of the experiences I've had, and that idea of having something, and it's gone, and still being in that zone, in that neurochemical zone that Gordon was talking about, still being the cartoon character who is running even though the cliff has ended and you're in midair, but you have not yet fallen, is a very real thing. And this is a movie that talks about that. You know, she made the mistake of telling him he loved her. And I have experienced, I've seen this with other people. And I've seen it happen with women also, and with men, but I've largely seen it the other way, is that the people who are complaining, I won't even ascribe a gender to it. The people who are complaining are people who took the words, I love you, and maybe she didn't even say it, but she sure acted like it. People who take the words, I love you, with a weight that is not intended when the words are spoken. And that disparity, that pain, is something that I think very few movies talk about. And very few movies show someone in a position to just do something about it. And he's able to do something about it. And that, to me, is very brave. It's very scary. It's very heroic. He is ruining himself with obsession. And we know this as it's going on. But if the act of loving or being cast out of love is an act of axiomatic decay, if it's an entropic act, it's just headed for doom anyway, he is doing everything he can to try and pull the pieces back together when he can. And in that way, it's a bizarre kind of wish fulfillment. You know, you don't wish that you know, you're going to be real mean or something, because I mean, when he's getting ready for that date at Ernie's, before she puts on the earrings or the nose ring or whatever it is, he's happy, he's relaxed, and so is she. You know, I mean, so is she, which is really an interesting comment on acting and role play, because, you know, she was Judy playing Madeline, but maybe the act of playing Madeline gave her permission to be loved in the way that Madeline was loved. So that's as I said, I had a lot to say, and it ain't about Jimmy Stewart and his career, which is important, but there's a lot of stuff in this movie, and I felt that way since I saw it when I was 14.
Very nice. Very
nice. You go.
I have nothing more really to add. I mean, it's an interesting movie for sure. It's a fun movie to watch. So.
Yeah, and I think too, yeah. I had not really watched Vertigo in years, because I remember when I'd seen it in high school, it was part of that kind of, you know, my kind of, you know, it's like you discover things and you start to go down certain rabbit holes, like, you know, because I like Doctor Who, I started deep diving into British science fiction, you know, John Wyndham, Nigel Neal, H.G. Wells. In watching Vertigo the second time around, part of it was keeping the Dark Shadows connection in mind, but I'd forgotten it's not only a good film, it's a film that there's not a wasted minute. And even though there are long stretches, it's also not about, I mean, it's really about a man who, as Patrick kind of said, is seeking healing. But it's the way he's doing it might not necessarily be the healthiest. I mean, this is a guy who's dealing with a lot of stuff, and it's easy to forget now in this, you know, we've got 2.5-hour movies that are basically all talk. Hitchcock, the one thing that a lot of directors can learn and should learn is that movies are a visual medium. If you have 2.5 hours of people just talking with the occasional CGI, you're doing it wrong. Like, there's nothing in this movie that feels counterfeit, that feels forced, or that feels like unnecessary plot contrivance.
It's all authentic.
Yes. It's all authentic, as Patrick says.
Yeah, I mean, it feels realer than real. And it has, as a film, and I think Bernard Herrmann is responsible for this as much as anyone, there's an alchemy to it. It feels like I'm watching a ritual. There is something, and I know this is a cop-out. These are like critical anti-phrases I'm using now. There's no substance to what I'm going to say, but when has there been? There is something magical in between the frames that other Hitchcock movies kind of approach, but they don't get it. And with the exception of Citizen Kane, maybe Taxi Driver, other movies with Bernard Herrmann music approach, but never quite get. And it's also a user-friendly movie, I think. I mean, the fact that I was 14, I just flunked the 6th grade. I was no genius, and I'm still not. I'm just a guy. But I was able to sit in a theater and watch this, and just, I knew that I had touched a piece of art. I'd come in contact with a piece of art that just meant something bigger. And it wasn't a David Lynch thing or saying, okay, now guess what I'm about. Oh yeah, you guessed, well, you're wrong. You know, it didn't do that. It's like, guess what I'm about. Am I about that? Yeah. Now keep going. Or stop. It's up to you. And I love that about it. And I think, Joel, Jimmy Stewart, you know, given the roles he had played prior, I think you're right. Jimmy Stewart makes an ideal ambassador for that. You know, think about the other Hitchcock men. Okay. Cary Grant. Jewel, if this movie had Cary Grant, what would it have been like?
I don't know. That's sort of the weird thing too, because there's a movie called North by Northwest, and initially Hitchcock had put James Stewart in that movie, but he switched James out for Carey.
So think about this. Both movies are about men who are deceived and men who are placed out of their element, but men who should, in theory, be absolutely capable of handling the challenge they're given, right? North by Northwest, they are physical challenges. They are mental challenges. They're challenges of society, in fact, and telling who from whom and all of that. The sort of thing that we imagine Cary Grant, the cat, master of the game, being exquisitely good at. It's why putting him out of his element in Bringing Up Baby is so funny. Because he should be in control of all these things, and he's not. In Vertigo, Jimmy Stewart is this, even when he's playing a badass, he still is this font of simple warmth. He's the voice of Campbell's Soup. He's the guy who's reading poems for his granddaughter about a dog named Blue on The Tonight Show. I'm starting to sound like John Huston on The Tonight Show. And so the Eagles came down. Anyway, and yet Stewart is going against type in that, emotionally, he should be the guy who can, I think this woman's lying to me. I'm gonna protect my heart. I'm gonna go off with Midge and raise a family. That's what you expect Stewart to do. And Midge, a lot of weird things in this movie. The fact that Midge disappears is an example of the light switch feelings thing, but what comes around goes around. And the way Elster and Judy treat Scotty is the way Scotty treats Midge. When she is no longer of use, even as a friend, she disappears.
Yeah.
Don't do Photoshop, because she basically photoshops herself onto Madeline or the Carlotta's picture. The sad. What an atmospheric film too. What a picture of San Francisco at this time. God, the colors are really interesting because it is a Technicolor that is much more British than American. It's a strangely muted palette. In a lot of ways, it reminds me of the color palette that we would see in Watchmen. Rather than being these primary colors, it's all these secondary colors. Scotty's suit is purple, but it's a very muted purple. It's almost brown. And all of that's intentional. So that things like the green of her dress and the red of the wall at Ernie's really stand out. It's just one thing after another. And of course, you've seen the movie time after time, right? Great.
I have.
Great film. Well, the Muir Woods sequence is recreated in that. When Wells takes her to Muir Woods. So hell of a movie. Just fantastic. I don't know if it makes me feel better. I don't know if it makes me feel worse. I don't know if I'm better or worse for this movie existing. That's very hard to tell. But it's really beyond a movie for me.
I think if Cary Grant was in this movie, I don't know, I think it would be a different movie, honestly.
Very much so. I mean, Gordon, what do you think? How would one of the other Hitchcock men have been in this film? Or how would the film have been? Because, we know all these actors are capable actors.
I think if you had Cary Grant in the Jimmy Stewart role, you wouldn't believe it. Because you would be thinking, because I think his image was that of the charm, and with North by Northwest, and he kind of fits that. You want that kind of traditional, handsome, with all the mental and physical challenges. He would be, that would be like the Ryan Reynolds role in a modern movie.
You know who seems like he would be the proper analog, even though this movie itself is 30 or 40 years old. Anthony Edwards.
Mm-hmm.
Like Miracle Mile era Anthony Edwards.
That would be perfect.
Yeah. Yeah, they've got to have some homeliness, but not too much. Just enough that we go, oh, that's just a guy.
Definitely, for sure. Very, very good movie, Vertigo. Is there another movie you guys want to tackle?
Well, gosh, we've talked about a number of movies. If we are going, if we may, I have 3 favorite films, and we just did one of them, and it's the only one that pisses me off. The other 2 make me happy. Can we talk about one or both of those?
Sure.
And they're great. They're great movies. One is The Right Stuff, and the other is Beyond the Valley of the Dolls.
Which one do you want to do first?
Gordon, are you up for either of those films?
Let's do Beyond the Valley of the Dolls.
Do Beyond the Valley of the Dolls. Jewel, have you ever seen Beyond the Valley of the Dolls?
Nope.
Oh, you're in for a treat.
Oh, yes.
Genuinely, we're not setting you up. This is not a snipe hunt. This movie written by Roger Ebert when he was a kid, and it saved 20th Century Fox. Wow. Yeah, they're swimming in red ink.
Damn.
Yeah.
Where can I find it?
It's streaming all over the place.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I mean, this is a movie I could do a commentary on. I love this movie. And the stories of the Megan. Let me see.
Yeah. Trust us, Joel. When you see it, you'll say, "This is my scene," and it freaks me out.
Yeah, this is my happening. It freaks me out. It is okay. It is on. It's rentable on all the major services. I suspect there's a slime tutorial or something like that on YouTube. So is my instinct. And if I happen to visit, it's on my Movies Anywhere. So I can put it on at your home and you can watch it. And we can watch it together. Because that's how I use Movies Anywhere, is when I'm visiting people.
I'll find it and go give it a rent, probably on Amazon. So
you know Beyond
the Valley of the Dolls.
On the Valley, Valley of the Dolls is the is dopey and lackluster film to which this is a sequel, or it's not a sequel. It is a continuation. It's a follow up. It's I would love to just watch you watching the trailer. That alone would be worth the price of admission.
I'll tell you what. I'll watch the trailer when we record the next time.
I love it
after I watch the movie. Because the thing, if I watch a trailer of a movie, it's like I try not to watch too many trailers because trailers tend to spoil movies too much. Yeah. I'm not saying this one would, but
no, I'm with you.
Yeah. When do you guys want to do this one?
Whenever you want.
How's tomorrow night at 10:30?
I can do that.
I can do that too.
Okay.
That would be great.
Okay, I will go rent Beyond the Valley of the Dolls and check it out and get back to you guys by tomorrow night. First of all, thank you guys for doing Vertigo with me. This was a lot of fun.
Jewel, oh my God, it's playing. I wonder how that is. It must be on the Internet Archive.
Links to Gordon Dymowski's Amazon page is going to be in the description box. Links to the Dark Shadows Day book on Bow is going to be in the description box written by Patrick.
Yeah,
McCray.
I'm sure that if people want to watch along, there are going to be a torrent of those interested.
Exactly.
Well, wait, before we go,
a pirate
one question.
For me.
Who's your favorite Hitchcock leading man?
Hitchcock. Gosh, Jimmy Stewart or Bruce Dern. Not Bruce Dern. He was in his last movie. Jimmy Stewart, yeah.
Yeah, Stewart.
Because I'll tell you, I think if pressed, Jimmy Stewart could pull off any of the Cary Grant roles, but I don't think Cary Grant could necessarily pull off any of the Jimmy Stewart roles.
Yeah, mine is one Joseph Cotton. Shadow of a doubt.
Joko's great.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, great actor.
And very David Selby-like.
Yeah, he's my favorite movie of his is The Third Man with him and Orson Welles. Great movie.
Yep.
Fun.
Clock.
It's one of my favorite movies.
Yeah, fun watch. We'll all have to discuss it sometime. It's a fun watch.
Jewel, I have a question for you. Is your lime hairy?
I'll ask my wife. I'm sure she'll know something.
My goodness.
Shout out to my wife who's at work.
Hey, I wonder what's in our chat.
I'll definitely check out Beyond the Valley of the Dolls. Guys, thank you so much for discussing Vertigo. Great recommendation by Patrick. Tomorrow night, the three of us will be back for Beyond the Valley of the Dolls. Guys, have a great night.
Jewel, I feel like chicken tonight, like chicken tonight.
I'm sure you do. The cat's asleep behind Gordon. He's just laying there. That's great. Oh, my God. See you tomorrow night, guys.